I don't. By the way, the back and forth earlier and throughout the show, I guess, on Jim Montgomery and whether he forced his way out of here is of interest to me because I keep getting text messages on the Subaru of New England text line suggesting that it is outrageous to think that anything occurred other than Jim Montgomery being fired by the Bruins and then him just luckily landing himself a new job 4 days later.
Right.
But isn't the onus on the organization that controls his fate? Like, if you own the Bruins or run the Bruins and you're about to fire a coach or release a player, wouldn't it be on you to see before what you anticipate the market would be so that you're not allowing him to go somewhere without any sort of compensation? Like, if they fired him, I agree. I mean, you should never have a coach enter the walk year, which is why the Patriots decided to move on from Bill, because instead of extending him, they didn't want him to enter a year as a lame duck, and I don't think Bill would have done it, rightfully so. So
why the Red Sox got the deal done with Alex Cora
at the midway point.
Even though, hey, they had decided they weren't going to talk about it till the end, they got that done.
And so especially when you think about the tumultuous offseason with the goalie, the public negotiations that went bad with Cam, like, the whole thing was a recipe for disaster, and clearly Sweeney didn't want him long term, and the players had a million opportunities, Greg.
Well, I wonder if the Swayman thing influenced Jim Montgomery. Like, I wonder if he sat there, he had an offer in front of him from them, which was maybe it was a reasonable offer, and then he looked at the fact that they weren't going to cough up the extra, whatever, I think Rich Scoops Keefe had said at one point they were a couple $1 million apart. Bruins were offering 6.5, and they ended up at 8.5, so they were two. Maybe he looked at it and said, I'm not going to deal with this every single time there's somebody who wants a free agent or somebody who could be a free agent or somebody wants to get extended. I'm not going to deal with it every single time where they're lowballing it. I mean, I don't know.
But do you think that's more likely, or do you think that he didn't like being under the management and the way that they were making him run things where he wasn't able to put his coaches in place? Clearly it seemed like he wanted to be around hockey people that talked about certain things when it came to hockey. He wanted to be able to pick his staff.
Well, I mean, I guess if you believe that he got himself out of here, like if that was his intention.
Right.
Then and you want to pick what he didn't like. It was either that it was either Cam Neely and Don Sweeney and the way they managed him, or it was the players.
I would think that it was more do you think if a guy had taken a team to the playoffs and in that season set the record for wins, and then the next year took them to the playoffs again, didn't set the record for wins, but another really good season. And unfortunately, they lost in the playoffs both of his 2 years being here. Then all of a sudden, it's kind of the same players. You think it's more of the players, or he doesn't like the way he's being managed, especially putting out a very, very good product? Granted, it might be the regular season, but maybe what they're saying to him after postseason losses, management, is rubbing him the wrong way, where he's like, I want out of this place.
But then after the postseason, if management is doing that, I'm with Curtis. During the offseason, he would say, okay, then release me. I want to go to a different team. Why go in and play and be 20 games in and then have it all happen the way that it did? He's
on the contract. Maybe he feels like management will change the way they're doing things because he is a good coach.
But then you can't. So
why do you fire a coach?
But hold on, then you don't agree with what Greg just brought up, that maybe he didn't like the fact that maybe year after year he was going to have to deal with them lowballing free agents. Because if he doesn't believe that they're going to change for something like that, then he doesn't believe that they're going to change when it comes to him.
But they just gave Pasta $11 million and McAvoy $9 million, and then they gave Zadorov and Lindholm a ton of money. So they weren't lowballing; they were lowballing
Swayman,
one guy.
I would just say, guys, I think that Montgomery rightfully feels his team's overachieved, thanks in part to him, in the regular season. he balanced a very difficult goalie tandem successfully.
Except
here.
in the playoffs.
Exactly, because the playoffs you don't use to. But I think that Montgomery sat back this offseason and was like, we had the best season in the history of hockey. We advance around. We got further than we did the year before. And you're having me beg for my supper?
Right.
I think I think both sides, I don't think that Sweeney and Neely appreciated what Monty did during the regular season enough. And I think Monty took it personally. And clearly Cam shows that he can get personal when it comes to negotiating contracts.
And what it's showing me, or maybe what it could have some stanky residue out there, I don't know if it does, similar to a Kraft Mayo situation and front office situation where Monty wants to do things. What happened?
Oh, we lost a little bit of the pine needle. What do they call those? The bows or the?
Oh, it fell down.
Oh, they call that
garland.
The garland. Thank you, Jackson.
Right.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Yeah, the garland fell.
Yeah, the garland goes flaccid during hockey talk.
Yes.
But Greg, I think maybe they were trying to micromanage the way he coached. Maybe he wanted to go with one goalie, but they said, well, goalie Bob says we should rotate goalies. Or maybe it was the vice versa. I'm just saying, maybe he felt like he couldn't do it the way he wanted to do it because they were always inserting themselves, whether it's through coaches that were already there when it came to power play and PK that you brought up.
Well, I mean, it's clear, I think, we heard him during They Said It. He has an affinity for St. Louis. It's the wife's hometown. They gave him a second chance.
You can sell that to somebody else.
Okay, that doesn't matter.
No.
It's all about the money. It's all about the power.
It's maybe they said, hey, you come here, you can hire the guys that you want, you can hire the coaches that you want, you can run it the way you want to run the all-night stuff. Not that he wanted to be involved on who they were gonna, sign and free agents, but it doesn't smell funny to you that a coach gets fired and then a couple days later another team fires their coach, and the coach that just got fired, they were in the playoff hunt, and the other team wasn't too far away from the playoffs, and then that new team hires him a few days after they fired the other coach. All this within a week and a half.
Yeah, it is of interest, I think, but water under the bridge.
We'll never know.
You got Joe Sacco, and he has these guys on an absolute heater.
All right.
2-game heater, and Jake DeBrusk back tonight. So we'll see if they can make it 3-0 under their new head coach.